And if I had a crappy day today, I'm going to make an intention to reflect upon it. What can I change? And tomorrow when I start my next day, I'm going to make better choices and make better decisions. And each day I get up is a choice to try to make myself a little bit better.
Welcome to the Awaken the Awesome podcast with your host, Olivier D. This is Awaken the Awesome, a podcast bringing a down-to-earth approach to personal growth. On this show, we're helping individuals just like you learn about tapping into their incredible potential through insightful interviews and inspiring lessons. Our mission is to encourage you to always keep pushing towards achieving your dreams and to stay awesome along the way. It's so appropriate to launch this next episode into the universe. Indeed, the will to serve, despite the fear and excuses that we might tell ourselves to not show up for our loved ones, our colleagues, collaborators, clients, or otherwise, is often a driving force that many of our guests have in common on the show. As I edited this episode, I have to admit that a renewed feeling of solid dedication and selfless commitment came rushing back as my next guest, Russell Westcott's wisdom, warmth, and incredible wealth of knowledge reminded me why I do this. One of the nicest people I've had the privilege to have on this program, Russell is a full-time veteran, Canadian-based real estate investor, author, inspirational public speaker, devoted husband, and loving father who loves teaching and inspiring others to greatness. A small-town Saskatchewan boy turned 18-plus-year real estate investing guru, Russell is as down-to-earth as they come. Our conversation was a real gem of sincere kindness. Russell's intentional presence and empathy made this time incredibly precious. From the importance of getting clear on our goals, to embracing failures not as setbacks, but data points, to bringing the right attitude into every interaction, I can quite honestly tell you guys that this was one of the best episodes ever. You can connect with Russell via his official website, russellwestcott.com. And also, do be sure to follow and subscribe to his podcast, the Russell Westcott Podcast, available on all platforms. So let's get into this. Awaken the Awesome, episode 179 with Russell Westcott. Here we go. It is such a thrill when, you've actually, tapped into someone's content and someone who's so dedicated to serving the other, because everybody talks about, living your purpose or everything. But, for all the people listening, everybody knows this. And I'm very big about, just giving is better than actually taking. And Russell definitely exemplifies that, guys, because if you have not subscribed to his YouTube channel, you definitely should. Whether you're a real estate investor or not, whether you're a seasoned investor or not, whether you're curious about real estate investing or not, it is about real estate because there is a niche audience for that. But for me, what resonates with me is because Russell brings a message of intentional service. Because, even when the pandemic hit, and he said it in his own podcast, he said, I'm going to keep pushing out content. If anyone and everyone can actually use a little bit of nuggets to actually elevate themselves and educate themselves and actually do better, if this can serve someone, it's a job well done. And for that, I can only tip my hat to people with such an earnest motivation of personal truth and of giving, and something that needs to be celebrated. And for all that you've done and all that you do, I just want to say a heartfelt thank you. Thank you so much for your time and availability. And welcome to the Awaken the Awesome podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
Holy moly, I'm going to have a hard time walking out my door after that introduction there, my friend. So Olivier, thank you very much. I'm just truly honored to have this conversation, honored to serve. Honored to be a guest on. I was binge listening to your podcast over the last couple of days, and holy moly, you're 155 episodes deep. What are you, 5 years into this now?
Yes, sir. Yes,
that's
sir.
Huge. I always have a huge respect for somebody that takes a commitment to doing something of service and of value, helping people for that long of a period of time. Because, if it wasn't this, doing this podcast enriches, all the wealth we get from doing all these podcast episodes, right? It's so truly true. A labor of love. And for you to do something 155 episodes and 5 years just shows the kind of person that you are.
Appreciate you.
So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Okay. So now that we've pumped each other's tires here, now we can do a George Costanza mic drop. We're done, right?
For sure.
End on a high note.
I was really excited leading up to this conversation because, as I was telling you off the air, it's okay for anybody. We probably are going to talk a little little bit about real estate because, you know, your pedigree speaks for itself for anyone curious. But you know what? The greater message, if you will, is basically connecting and reaching out to that person, you know, listening to us because, you know, about, you know, hitting walls, you know, about, you know, the confusion of, okay, what is out there for me? Or like, you know, feeling that, you know, there is no way I'm going to get out of this, or feeling at your rock bottom. And, you know, just listening to your content and listening to all the great messages that you push out, you are very much about intentional action, as in you understand that within us lies the decision to do better. And I was just wondering, is that something that has always been part of your personality, or it's something that, was there a trigger moment, or what Dr. Phil calls a defining moment, where you understood that, you know what, I need to actually just pivot. I need to make a decision right now? Well, you know,
great question. And nothing like jumping into the deep end of the pool right off the bat with some heavy hitting questions right off the bat. And, you know, if I was to really kind of think back on it, it's maybe just because of a commitment to finding purpose and finding myself, in essence. I believe each of us who are listening to this is our own best, you know, experimentation and personal development. We're our own lab. We're our own, you know, judge of if we're moving forward or not. And for me, it's truly been, I guess if I could really sum it back, it would have probably been my personal development journey would have started probably when I was fairly young. But the time it really kind of struck home for me, that was kind of like that moment that kind of pivoted things to take it to the next level, would have been probably when in my university days, probably second or third year. I was having, having some challenging times right there. I would say it's probably was undiagnosed depression. At the time. It was an undiagnosed, a lot of those things was having some, you know, being in a funk and just not knowing what was going on, and just there was a lot of brain fog going on, and just things were just not connecting in the old coconut between the right ear and the left ear. And it just kind of slowly led me down a path of trying to, first of all, heal myself. At the time, I didn't know what was going on. Okay. And I had some help and went to see some professionals, and they prescribed some drugs to me, and, you know, antidepressants and all that kind of stuff. And I actually felt worse on the drug than I did off. So I quit that, and I had to find a way of how to just kind of get out of it. And really at that time, it really started with just reading some amazing books. Og Mandino's, the Napoleon Hill's, some of the old classic personal development books. And then I would say probably one of the most influential is for a lot of people that probably would say they got their start in the journey of personal development was seeing a giant 6'8" guy with big giant teeth on an infomercial at 2:00 in the morning, and Tony Robbins way back in the early 90s.
Everyone.
The Guthy Ranker cassette tapes, him and Fran Tarkenton on these stupid cheesy infomercials.
I remember those.
Personal Power, and I bought those Personal Power cassette tapes, and I burnt out battery after battery in my big giant yellow brick Walkman and big fuzzy earbuds, and I had to have the old Bic pen cassette in the cassette.
I don't feel dated at all.
Yeah. So for all you youngins out there that have in these fangled device called our phones, where you have 10,000 songs out of a push a button, us old timers had to go and we had to listen to a cassette tape, and we had to rewind it with
B-side.
a Bic, and we had to rewind it with a Bic pen in order so we didn't burn our batteries out. Right. And that would have been kind of the start of the inception moment for, if any of you are movie fans, Inception. It was the inception moment for me that there is something greater than maybe the life I'm living. There's something greater out there. And it has truly started me on better part of a lifelong quest. And I just love your title of your podcast is Awaken the Awesome. I'm going to give you a quick feedback. Maybe it should be called Awakening the Awesome, because we're all in a process, right? It's a process of awakening our awesomeness within us, right?
Oh, this is so cool. Wow.
to make a painfully long story short is it kind of would have been out of desperation that I had some challenging times with some mental illness, if you will. And I chose to just power my way through it and positive think my way through it. And just it led me on this journey of trying to better myself. And then when I'm bettering myself, making a commitment to share that with anybody who wants to listen, right? I've had so many amazing books and mentors and people that have helped me on my journey and on my elevator ride up and my elevation that I think it's now time that I send the elevator back down, and anybody who wants to get on that elevator, let's just keep moving forward. And if anyone wants to listen, doing these kind of podcasts and just sharing this and connecting with wonderful people like yourself, I'm just happy to do it. I could do these kind of episodes and these kind of, podcast interviews all day long.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm sure you can, because there's so tremendous energy, so much truth there. I can't just skip over it. I just also want to applaud you, really, because having dealt with some mental issues myself, because that's something I've really learned to resonate with, not just mental health as a whole, but also specifically for men, because coming from the Caribbean myself, Black Caribbean men, we don't talk about that. We just don't. It's just something that we just choose to live with, bearing the mask of masculinity. But I have to celebrate you, because most people don't acknowledge that. And second, even worse, they don't get the help that they need. So that's definitely a high five there, because people
asking for help is one of the hardest things to do.
It's just so hard.
And to be truly honest, I would have a feeling over this past year of this whole COVID thing, I probably had another episode that I was going through, and I just find out I started hiding, I started playing small, I just start shrinking down a little bit, and I just have to be awareness. So now, over all this years of working on myself, I can quicker assess when the problems start happening, and then I have to address it very quickly. And just finding a community of like-minded people, having wonderful conversations, getting involved with masterminds. I just started getting involved with a wonderful mastermind of, I think there's 22 of us guys.
Wow.
And a good friend of mine out of Ottawa said, "Hey, Russ, we meet Thursday mornings." And I go, "Awesome. Count me in. I'm in." And I said, "I'm committing to join this mastermind." And I said, his name is Rich. And I said, "Rich, just please tell me what Thursday morning means to you." And he goes, "Yeah, 7 a.m. And I go, "Oh, Rich, you know, I'm on Pacific time, so that's 4 in the morning for me." And I said, "I committed, I'm in," and still been showing up every Thursday morning. So,
wow.
But just belonging to a community, belonging to a group of, in my case, it's a group of guys, and we're exploring some really interesting topics. We're exploring our spirituality. We're exploring our businesses. We're exploring how we show up as fathers. We're exploring how we show up as husbands. We're exploring how we show up in our relationship. We're exploring how we come across through our business, how we communicate, how we step into greatness, if you will.
Wow. See, and that speaks a lot. And I'm happy you brought that up. Because there's that. My next question is basically twofold, because I understand, and I'm sure you've dealt with this going along your journey. Of course, you have to also recognize that there's something going on, but it's how you actually mentioned, you answered for me, how it's important to actually ask the help from the right people. All right. But what I wanted to say, if you could, touch on it, is through your own experience, you realize that you are not defined by a set script, as I say. You always, because a lot of people listening to us always think that, okay, this is what I have, this is the hand I've been dealt with, and this is it for me. And a lot of times people fail to understand that your script, you are the one writing it. And through your experience, and I was hoping you can actually extrapolate on that, basically, you know what? Every day is your opportunity to actually write your own story. And I was wondering if that's something that, you had to recognize eventually.
Well, absolutely. Well, let's put it this way. If let's just think about it from the opposite. If somebody else is writing it for you, I don't know if I like the author sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to accept when things go really good, you have to accept when things are really bad at the same time, because sometimes it's the silence between the notes that creates the beautiful music. So I 100% agree that you need to take control of authoring your own life, authoring your own day, because, life is hard enough as is without having a good manuscript and without having your hand on the pen writing that. So it's already difficult enough. Just imagine if you just completely just released it out there and you had no say and you had no responsibility, you had no accountability to it. It would be a hard life to live. It'd be even harder, right? And one of the things I believe, and this is just one of my beliefs, is most people are lacking purpose, right? I think we're having a lot of crisis of purpose with things. Like if most people were living on their purpose, there's a wonderful book over I might be getting it wrong, but it might be over your left shoulder with Start With Why, Simon Sinek.
Love it.
If most people really would watch that TED Talk of Start With Why and just understand that within your core of what you do, you start with your grounding reason why you're doing it. And if more people were intentional on their whys and they aligned from top to bottom their actions with their why, there'd be a lot less problems in this world, a lot less problems.
This is so true because we spend so much time, so much energy, so much resources, so much everything on things that inherently don't matter. I've been guilty of this. You spend so much time worrying, complaining, losing sleep over things that drain you, that do not bring you any form of return on investment on your well-being, that take time away from your family. And we spend so much time thinking that, there's some kind of fatal, energy somewhere, just imposing this on us. Particular circumstances notwithstanding. But a lot of people listening to us know this, that, there's no fatality. Certain things that you can overcome. You definitely can overcome. And I want to talk about fear for a second, because a lot of times I've heard this in a lot of conversation we've had. And there's a lot of, fear, of looking into the mirror and realizing all the work that has to be put in, but also listening to people like you. If we're just going to take real estate investment as an example, right? It's like, I could never get into real estate. Like, look at Russell. Well, Russell has had so many properties. He's bought 100 properties. He's been doing this forever. He makes it look so easy. I could never do that. And how do we address people on the very important aspect, which is probably a first step, if you will, just walking through that threshold? Fear of flight. What are we afraid of, Russell? What are we afraid of?
Well, interesting to note. So a couple things to unpack that you just said there. I'm 100% going to get to the fear component, but I want to talk about the worry. You opened a little bit of Pandora's box about the worry, if you will. People worry about lots of things, and interesting is nobody's immune to it. Nobody's immune to, everybody suffers a little bit from the worry, if you will. Some people more than others, and I have some famous stories within some of my clients, and some of them just on the outside looking in, they're just got multiple businesses and they're just crushing it, and they're doing stock trading and they're real estate investing and they got multiple businesses and they're doing fantastic. But when it comes down to is they're losing sleep over things that they're worried about. They're worried about the business going away. They're worried about the stock market turning. They're worried about their real estate, the tenants leaving. And it's just all these things that just compound and stack. And everybody would just, maybe if you're on the outside looking in, is go, why would you be worrying about anything? You got it all going on. But we all have those things, right? So for example, with a client like that, if I was working with them, and I am working with them, one of the things we're working on is we're building up the resilience. We're building up the mental toughness. We're doing some challenging things to put worry in its perspective, right? We would do an exercise, for example, let's imagine everything was wiped out. You lost everything. Let's just do this example. Humor me for a second. You lost everything. Job gone, business gone, stock market tanks, all your tenants leave. What would you do? Oh, I would panic and I'd freak out. Okay, well, what would we do? Wow. What would you start? And then I would get them to start an exercise that essentially eventually they come out and they go, you know what? I'd build it back stronger than ever because I had all those experiences. And sometimes you need that devastation to happen in order to fix it and change it. Okay, so now let's go into today's day and age. in that same person is you're not going to lose everything overnight. But what can we put in place to help backstop this? Then what can we do is maybe do some mental toughness challenges. Some, the one that's famous out there, which I've now done twice. I've failed on my third time 3 times. But if you've heard of the 75 hard challenge.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
I've done it twice and I've failed 3 times on my third time to do it. For multiple different reasons. All excuses I'm making.
I've been meaning to get on the wagon.
I have failed it. But what I'm trying to do is with this client is let's do this challenge. Let's start building out your mental resiliency that if any of these things do happen, you're now strong and you're resilient and you've got the grit that you can actually build it back stronger than ever. And whenever that, so that's on one side, we build up the mental strength. And then on the other side, we find ways to calm our nervous system, find ways to meditate, find ways to just get present in the situation, to start identifying when the worrying starts coming in and quickly click into triggering it in a positive way. Use the worry for the fuel to take the action as opposed to having the worry paralyze you into not doing a thing. Okay.
Wow.
So those are just a couple things. So that's a little bit about the worry. But so I believe worry and fear are fairly closely tied together. When one happens, usually fear is a close relative there as well. My thing that I tell people with, one of the reasons why you're fearful of something is probably because you haven't done the reps. You haven't done enough work in it. You haven't educated yourself. You haven't surrounded yourself with the proper people. You haven't put yourself into challenging situations to test out the scenario. Like, for example, I'll make this real for everybody. Usually when I talking to people about this thing called fear, I'll pop up on the screen. Let's say it was we had a visual presentation. I'll pop up a picture of a firefighter, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody who's sitting there, and the firefighting is somebody, and we could just be out where I'm out in British Columbia, the forest fires, and there's firefighters there. What do most people do when they see something on fire? Most people, what do they do, Olivier?
On fire?
Yeah, when something's on fire, what do most people do?
They run.
They run away, right? That's most people. Mm-hmm. There's a select few that will do what? They'll pick up their phone and call 911.
Yes.
And then there's even the smallest percentage of people will do what when they see fire?
They'll
run into it to try to save people, right? Now, a firefighter, if he was sitting here in the picture of it, you'd see him, they'd have the helmet on and the screen and the oxygen mask and the protective gear and oxygen and an axe and a hose, and he's equipped to go into that fire, right? So that's what I firmly believe is that we need to equip ourselves with the tools to run into the fear. Okay. So How do you equip it? You equip it by finding other people who have gone into the fire before. You learn what they have for their helmet and their gear, the oxygen, the mask, the axe, the hose. And then the other thing you have to do is you have to train. You have to train how to be able to carry that hose into the fire. You have to train how to wear the hose. You have to train how to point the hose over here on the water to where the fire is going. You want to douse where it's going, not where it's been. Right. So you get equipped to handle the fire. And I use now just substitute fear for fire. So how do you deal with fear is you get equipped with the right team, the right equipment, the right hoses, the right helmet, the right oxygen, the right tools to be able to use that adrenaline to break records. Right. Wow. To step up when you're called upon. And that's what you do is you step up and you serve at a greater level when the fear is at its greatest. And that takes training and that takes time.
Takes time. Wow. Does that fall into your terrific acronym, the team acronym? Because it's so awesome. When I heard about it, it was like I had never deconstructed that way, but thank you for the wonderful visual. But I really want to introduce it to people. I wasn't thinking about it, but just listening to you talk about it, there's this wonderful acronym that you actually developed, and it just basically encapsulate everything in terms of, again, whether it's real estate or a personal project, whether it's launching a business or putting the right steps in place. This totally speaks to it. Please tell us about the TEAM acronym.
Here's the way I'll set the context is, so I have conversations and consultations with people all day long, and one of my favorite questions to ask people, and it's funny, I asked this question 3 times today with the people I talk to, is, I asked the question, what's stopping you? And then I'll shut up. I will let people tell me, like, seriously, okay, like, and I'll just give an example. So I was talking with this, lady today, and she's had a wonderful experience in real estate so far. She's bought a place for like $310,000. It's now worth $620 in 5 years. She made $50,000 a year in the appreciation. And I asked her a question. I go, how long do you have to work in order to make $50,000? She goes, geez, a long time. And I go, okay, well, that was just your side hustle. You did that. And so I asked her question is, okay, are you able to qualify for more financing? Yes. Do you have capital to buy another property? She says, yes. Do you know where you want to buy a place? Yes. And I go, well, what's stopping you? And then I'm doing this intentionally as a dramatic pause because I want to hear what comes next from her. And what will happen is if you ask that question and you let the person respond, there will be one of 5 things that will stop people in the context of real estate, context of business, a context of a lot of things. There'll be one of 5 buckets that will stop people. And my job and my goal as a good coach and a good servant and a good steward to help people move forward is to help you bust through those 5 things. So the 5 things are, the T stands for time. So a lot of people just say, I don't have the time. I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the time to focus on this. I don't have the time. Okay, got it. That's one. The E stands for education. I don't have the education. I don't know how to flip a property. I don't know how to buy a property. I don't know how to qualify for mortgage. So that's the education. That's E. The A stands for attitude, or another fancy word for mindset. Maybe you don't have the mindset. Maybe you are a little risk averse. Maybe you just don't have the resourcefulness to get it done. So that's time, education, attitude, and the M stands for money. Okay. So maybe you don't have the money, but here's the beautiful thing is if you have the time, the education, and the attitude, you can find a way to get the money. Okay. And then the last variable, which spells out TEAM, which is the variable of team. So either you're lacking the time, you're lacking the education, you're lacking the attitude, you're lacking the money, or you're lacking the team. Everything that is stopping you from moving forward will be in one of those 5 things.
Wow. And you can really apply this to anything. And that's the beauty of it, because no matter how much I try to spin it, I just write any type of goal that you would want to accomplish. Those buckets always come up, in terms of limitations, whether in terms of excuses, because it's very important to keep people accountable. And I love the way you put it. If you're sitting across from a client and you're actually holding them accountable, and I appreciate this, the same way you did it just now in this exercise, just leaving that awkward silence where you realize that, you know what, I can't do the work for you. I can help you, but it's important to hold ourselves accountable. And how important is accountability to you? Because often you talk about failure is not an option. What you tell yourself, you need to build a plan. You need to be focused. But people forget that. You get lost in translation because they just think that, okay, we just do it today and then tomorrow it'll just take care of itself. How important is the consistency into, the process, Russell?
Yeah. Well, it's everything, in my opinion. Now, let me continue that same story that I was sharing. So, a lot of times people, when and I'm not trying to be a jerk about this when I have these conversations. I'm just really trying to get really crystal clear in the shortest period of time. It's like in that conversation I had with that person who was able to qualify for money. She's had a wonderful experience. She actually has the capital. She knows where she wants. She even has a realtor and stuff like that. And I asked the question is, okay, so what's stopping you? And the answer usually with some people, in order to just get me to back off a little bit, will say, nothing's stopping me. I go, is that true? And they go, well, yes, nothing's stopping me. Okay, well then why haven't you done it? I go, well, so then I'm essentially holding them a little bit accountable, and they can say, well, we're going to do it now. And I go, okay, pull out your calendar. Well, how does 30 days look for you? What do you mean 30 days? So let's say it's the 15th right now. So next month on the 15th at 10 in the morning, I'm going to call you. And are you going to have it done? Some people will sit there and go, yeah, absolutely, bring it on. Or some people just, So, okay, if the answer is delay and a little, usually I'll say is, okay, let's really dive deeper. What is stopping you? There's something stopping you. So let's really let's unpack this a little more. Or if the person says nothing's stopping me, call me next month at 10 in the morning. I'll make a note in my calendar and I'll send that person a note 1 month later, and I'll say, how did you make out on the conversation with the mortgage broker, the place that you're looking? How many properties have you analyzed, and have you got an offer accepted? And
wow.
The person, they told me that that's what they were going to do, and nothing was going to stop them. And if something's stopping them, then we'll open the conversation up again, is what's stopping you? And it's a very powerful question for somebody to ask of you, but it's also a very powerful question for you to ask yourself. Is like, truly, what is stopping me from doing this? I've been, calling a bunch of BS on myself here as I'm saying, I'm going to do this. I'm shooting all over myself. Right. And what is truly stopping me? And just asking that question of yourself is being, sometimes a lot of people are looking for a coach, a third party outside influence coach. But honest to goodness, I think we're all our best coaches for ourselves. Is if you've done some personal development work and you have a desire to serve and help others at a deeper level. And, but at the same time, I think everybody should take a little personal accountability to their own coaching of themselves. And because here's the thing, the answers lie within you already, right?
You hear that a lot. But
it is. But hear the way I said that, the answer is either a lie within you, or it already is inside of you. There's a lot of people that have the answers. They think they have the answers, but it might be what they think other people want, or something maybe not what they want for themselves. But if you truly just take some time to just sit with the question, what do I want? What's working? What's not working? And what's stopping me? If you just ask those questions right there, if you ask those questions every week of yourself at a set time, and you truly sit with it to come up with answers, you will change your life in a course of years.
Spectacular. This is true. Because the most time you're spending at any given time is with yourself. I don't care whether you're going to your job, you're going to the gym, you're going to the grocery store. Sure, you have lots of obligations, but that number one person you're spending the most time with is you. So that person deserves your attention, deserves your preoccupation, deserves your care, deserves your education, deserves your implication. You need to take care of you because you can't give what you don't have. And that's an early mentor of mine once told me something is, wherever you go, there you are. Oh, I love that.
Right.
I have that written. It's one of my daily affirmations.
Oh, really? Well, there
it is.
Wherever you go, there you are. So you better be very intentional on who you bring with you. Right. And don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here as a perfect being. I'm flawed. I have major challenges with things. I make stupid mistakes with a lot of things, but I'm at least committed to the process to try to get better on a daily basis. And if I had a crappy day today, I'm going to make an intention to reflect upon it. What can I change? And tomorrow when I start my next day, I'm going to make better choices and make better decisions. And each day I get up is a choice to try to make myself a little bit better.
But often enough, you know this as well as I do, a lot of us often get bogged down or discouraged by that one failure. And you keep telling us, I've watched a lot of your videos to know this, failure is also part of the formula. Failure is part of the process. Failure is inevitable. And you need to get, the same way you need to get comfortable with the fear, you also need to get comfortable with the fail. I'm not saying that you need to fail. I'm not sure how you feel about it, whether you say fail often or, you know what, deal with the failures because they will happen. How do we get clear about how to handle the failure?
Well, you know what? It's one of those things is failing is, I truly believe the fail is really the only way you can potentially fail is if you stop and you quit. Like truly, but don't get me wrong. There's sometimes if something ain't going right, you have to quit and try something else. Like that is a very nuanced conversation of when to quit, when to fail, when to pivot. But, and I think it all comes down to, if it really comes down to a purpose, if it comes down to a why, and it comes down to your intention, the only way you can fail on that, if you're truly committed to it, is if you quit on it, right? You might pivot, you might change the direction a little bit. But, to be honest, each of the little fails along the way is just a data point, right? I don't know about you, but, I used to play a lot of golf, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm maybe getting back into it again. I even tried my hand professionally for a little while as well. But when you're sitting out on the driving range, and you hit one big, you flail one way off to the right, it hits the net over on the side. You go, oh, I'm going home. I failed. Man, do I suck. I'm a hack. Pack up my bag and go home, and there's still another 100 golf balls sitting in the tray. Well, it's a data point. You hit a crappy shot. So, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to check out this time? Okay, maybe I'll aim a little bit left. Maybe I'll swing, hit right through it. What did my coach last say? Okay, turn my hand over a little bit. Okay, I'm going to work this one through. Okay, this one snapped left. Oh, geez. Okay, I'm a failure. Oh, no, right? It's another data point. And then you slowly just getting each of the data points to eventually where you want to get to. And just using each one of those results that you get from taking the action to take better action on the next shot.
Wow.
Right?
Powerful. I wanted to piggyback on that one because data points and, references and how to deal with those obstacles. You said it yourself, if you have no more obstacles, your goals aren't big enough. But for me, and again, this is just me asking the question because one of my biggest hurdles, if you will, along my journey is also dealing with the naysayers, those toxic people. Every time you talk about your big goals and your big dreams and your big ambitions, you're often met by, yeah, that's nice, but oh, you really want to do that? Or don't do that? Or why would you want to do that? Don't get into that. I did that and I failed and you shouldn't. So that's what, and we get sidetracked and we get discouraged. Because, you know what, we're surrounded by people well-meaning sometimes, some people really close to us, and often we get discouraged. And I was wondering if there's something, first of all, that you experience and how can you help, those listening to us on this call, basically, how to deal with that discomfort of having to deal with our surroundings when they're not really being that encouraging for our journey.
Well, so there's a couple things. The first thing I'm going to say to everybody is it's natural that, and I'll give an example. So today I sent out and like I said, I'm not perfect in any stretch of the imagination. Send out an email to my database today. Okay. I sit there and, you take some time and effort and you pour your heart into it. And it's just a really, what you think a really in-depth message. It's talking about one of your recent podcast episodes. You send out a note. And then all of a sudden, let's say there's 5,000 people on the database and it comes back and 14 people unsubscribe. And I'm sitting there and I look at it and I go, why is that person unsubscribing? What is that? What did I do? What's going on? The person unsubscribes. You didn't say anything about the 3,600 people that opened it, right? You didn't do any of that kind of things, but you've dwell and focused on the 14 unsubscribes.
Wow.
So the point I'm trying to say is, guys, it's natural that's typically what we do as people. So it's one of those ones, as I tell everybody, is awareness is the first step. So aware that you're doing that. I'm dwelling on the unsubscribes in my life, right? Which is, I get it. That's not right. So you process that very quickly and you quickly pivot into what about the 3,600 people that opened it? And you're potentially helping them move forward. So if you just pivot the thought process from the unsubscribe to the people that opened it and focus on how to serve the people that open your messages, not the people that unsubscribe. Because here's the thing, there's always going to be people that unsubscribe, and that's okay, right? As a matter of fact, they're on their own journey and they need to have a different path, and maybe you're just not their cup of tea, which is totally fine, but you're somebody's cup of tea. So start pouring your tea into other people's cups that you're their cup of tea.
Wow. That really harkens back to something that Malcolm Gladwell said in a TED Talk where he talked about, there is no perfect Pepsi. There are only perfect Pepsis. As in, your flavor, whether it's Diet Pepsi or Pepsi Zero whatsoever. Some people like it, some people don't. You are not for everybody. You know, whether it's your personality, whether it's your content, whether it's your business, you are not for everybody. You know, my wife has an iPhone. I have an Android. That it's perfectly okay. We can still live together. But I really
I think you're still okay, right?
You're still okay.
You were able to set this a call up and all this stuff with an Android. So
there you go.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to keep you too long. I just had one last question. And basically, because there's something that you and your business partner, Jason, Jason, I forgot.
Yep. Jason.
Yeah, Jason. Yep. I'm sorry. I'm taking notes as well. But when you guys were basically deconstructing basically the basic tips for anyone beginning into real estate, it's not really about those tips, but the way you guys started it. The most important thing that you mentioned, both of you, in your own individual way, was why. It's not just why you want to get into real estate, but again, Simon Sinek, why are you on this journey? Why do you want to get better? Why do you want to lose weight? Why do you want to stop smoking? Why do you want to, make more money at your job? Why do you want to read more? Why is something that escapes us. And sometimes it sounds all woo-woo and stuff, but you never fail to bring it back. Your journey, your plan, your vision has a lot to do with your internal values and your why. And that is going to be a guiding compass. But for a lot of people listening to us, and I know this because I've dealt with it, the why gets confusing. The why gets messed up. Yeah, I want to change the world, or yeah, I want to have 10,000 downloads, or yeah, I want to get into real estate and I want to like passive income and stuff. But how do we just sit with ourselves, and then how do we properly learn to identify our why? Would you have a couple of tips for us?
Well, here's the thing, and here's an exercise I get most of my coaching clients, not most, I should say all of my coaching clients when we first start working together, is one of the first things we do is they create a vision board for what they want to accomplish in their life. And I don't care how they do it, whether they get a big giant poster board and cut out magazine articles, or get a Canva thing and just pick pictures in it, or make it a multimedia 7-camera shoot with stereo microphones. I don't care how they do it. To be honest, I really don't. But what I want them to do is they have to take, and I give them a couple weeks to put together a vision board of what they want to accomplish with their life on a spiritual level, on a family level, on a financial level, on a health level, on, do you want to learn new skills? Do you want to travel someplace? And they just come back, and I give them a couple weeks to do that exercise. And then what they have to do is they have to come back and they have to present me their vision board. They present it to me. And, I care about what's on it, but what I really care about is I like watching them, how they interact and how they light up. And I can tell pretty quickly by reading energies and reading things of just watching people of something that I might just call BS on them. I go, I'm not feeling that. You say you want to, build this house out in the farm and yada, yada. I'm not sensing. I'm not getting that. Right. They say, well, it's the parents and I think my dad wants me to do it, or whatever the story is. Mm-hmm. I get people to really build that vision of themselves, and to the point that, I have many clients that when they're presenting their vision board to me, they'll cry. They will physically bring emotion and tears into how they want to give back, how they want to serve, how they want to help, how they want to give back to the children, who they want to become. Because that's actually one thing that I'm looking at. And I have a famous saying is, if your why won't make you cry, it's not strong enough.
Wow.
Right. So there has to be some emotion involved with it. So that's what I usually get people to start with, is building out a vision board. And if you want to take it another step, an early coach of mine, Les Hewitt, last conversation I had, he says, take your vision board, put some music to it, and then listen to it every single day with some music, and really power and get more senses into it every single day for 30 days. And that'll even strengthen it even more. So just get that vision board. And then the next exercise after that is get your core values. And then I want people to do is to get their core intention in life. Like, what is your core intention? Like, how do you want to have your day measured at the end of the day to see if you've had yourself a wonderful day? For example, mine is how I sign my off all my podcasts, is how I sign off all my emails, is on my letterhead of my business. And my core intention is how I want people to feel after our interaction. I want people to feel inspired, encouraged, and knew that I came from a place of love. Even if it was a tough conversation, I still came from a place of love. So inspiration, encouragement, and love is my core intention of life. And that's the lenses that I look at. Everything I do is to make sure that I leave people feeling inspired, encouraged, and came from love.
Or came from a place of love.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't put it any simpler because, again, you know what? This is definitely the energy that I'm feeling, not just from watching all your videos and, listening to your podcast, but really, I'm really touched by this wonderful time. Russell, it's, I can't put it any simpler for anyone who has been listening to this, because for me, it's also a way to connect with the other person, because we only have one shot at this thing called life. So when someone decides to
unless you're Shirley MacLaine, right?
This is true. But when someone decides, actually chooses, just to lend me a little bit of their sandbox, basically just taking some time out of their busy day to connect. This has been a very elevating conversation, Russell, because I learned so much. And as I knew it, this was not going to be a conversation about real estate. It's definitely an individual who I truly admire. And I really want to thank you for this tremendous amount of wonderful insights. And I'm sure a lot of us can benefit from. It's been a true honor and a thrill. I really want to say a heartfelt thank you.
Oh, honored to serve. Thank you.
We have a parting, basically as a little habit, parting tradition on the podcast, where I just basically leave the floor open to the guests. It's kind of a, open forum type of thing, whether it's a book recommendation, a particular quote, or just a daily affirmation, anything, someone that I like to call that next step that someone can wake up tomorrow and take that next step towards the next level. Would you have anything to leave the listeners with?
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to leave you with a book that, not a lot of your listeners, not a lot of them might not know. And it's a corny book in many respects. And even the author will say it's corny in many respects. It's called The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins.
5 seconds.
Yeah, it came at a wonderful time for myself of personal development. I was really stuck on something. And essentially, it's not the 5-second rule of if you drop a piece of food on the floor, you got 5 seconds to eat it before it doesn't count or something. It's actually, it's if you're feeling stuck in something and you have that intuition within you of that you have to do something, okay? You typically have 5 seconds to move and take action upon it, or else it'll be gone. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful little an action activation exercise. So let's say I'm sitting there and I have a thought, and the thought I have is, you know what? I have 2 more emails that I need to get to follow up with some wonderful people that can be sponsors for your podcast. Just throwing that out there. Mm-hmm. And you're sitting there going, I'm tired, but I should do it. And what you have to do is, if you have that thought, you need to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, move. And then what you do is you get into action of moving towards taking action on it, as opposed to just letting it go. So most people will have the idea and they'll just say, the Avengers is on. I want to finish watching this. No, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Let's go. Let's answer those 2 last emails.
Spectacular. I will definitely.
And it's a wonderful it's a short book. It's an easy book. And it's one of those books. There's a wonderful story in how Mel Robbins came up with it. There's also, I believe, a TED Talk that she did as well in there too. Mel Robbins.
I will definitely.
And a short book, easy to read, and it's wonderful to help you if you're feeling stuck to get into action.
5-second rule. 5-second rule. Definitely. If I'm just you talking about it, that's a great sell. I'm definitely getting it. I am so getting it. If the listeners want to connect with you, following this call, if they want to, reach out, there are particular places we can direct them to.
Yeah, just the simplest would be everything is wrapped around my personal brand and my name. If you type out Russell Westcott.com, not when you start typing in Russell West, it'll come up as Russell Westbrook. And
so you've been around the block.
Well, when you see that, you'll know that I'm definitely not him. I'm not an NBA basketball player, right? No, so it's Russell Westcott. Westcott, And from there, everything revolves around the name, and you can find me throughout my social media channels or my website or podcast or everything through there as well.
Terrific. I will definitely link all the proper links on the blog post once it goes live. Guys, my guest has been Mr. Russell Westcott, coach, real estate investor, a tremendous individual of great insight, knowledge, wisdom, and care. Terrific energy. I can't thank you enough, Russell. Guys, if this conversation has resonated with you, please share it. As you know, we always try to push the message forward. I can't thank you enough for always supporting us. Stay safe, stay blessed, as always do. Stay awesome. This has been another episode of the Awaken the Awesome podcast. We always love to get your feedback, so please do drop us a line via Instagram, Facebook, or email. Our email address, awakentheawesome@gmail.com. Do visit our official website at awakentheawesome.ca, where you can find our entire back catalog of episodes and incredible guests. Also, if you haven't already, please hop on over to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, give us a rating, and leave us a review, as this helps us tremendously in growing this podcast and spreading the word to more awesome listeners like you. We always appreciate your support, and thank you for listening. Stay awesome.